Jasmine had always taken pride in control. As a visual merchandiser and supervisor for a well-known clothing store, her world was built on precision. Every display intentional, every color story curated, every mannequin posed to tell a silent story that made people feel something. She understood presentation. She understood perception. What she didn't understand was how quickly everything could fall apart. It had been a late shift, the kind that left her feet aching and her mind foggy as she locked up, the glow of the storefront fading behind her. The night air was cool, wrapping around her as she slid into her car, exhaling the weight of the day. She barely remembered the drive, just the hum of the engine, the quiet stretch of road, the red light ahead. She stopped, waited, breathed, and then headlights. Too fast, too close, a blur of motion that didn't make sense until it was already happening. The impact was violent, metal screaming against metal, her body jerking forward as the world snapped out of alignment. Pain followed, sharp, disorienting, immediate. For a moment, everything went silent. Then chaos rushed in. Later, she would learn the truth. The driver who hit her hadn't just been careless. She had been 16, terrified, and driving a car she wasn't supposed to have, her mother's, stolen in a reckless moment of defiance. She had run the red light without thinking, without seeing, without understanding the damage a single decision could cause. Jasmine didn't know whether to feel angry or just exhausted. The accident left its mark. Her body carried it first, aching muscles, stiffness that lingered no matter how carefully she moved. But it was deeper than that. Something inside her felt shaken loose, like the careful order she'd built her life on had cracked. That was how she found herself there, lying on a chiropractor's table, staring up at a ceiling that smelled faintly of antiseptic and quiet healing, trying to piece herself back together. And that was where she met him, Emmett. He walked in like he didn't belong to the sterile calm of the room, like he had stepped out of an entirely different story and somehow ended up here. Tall, sculpted, effortless. His caramel-toned skin caught the light in a way that made it seem warmer, softer. Long dreads framed his face, drawing attention to features that felt almost unfairly striking. But it was his smile that unraveled her. Bright, easy, disarming. The kind of smile that didn't ask for attention, yet demanded it anyway. Jasmine smiled back before she could stop herself, her breath catching somewhere between her chest and her thoughts. And when he spoke, his voice wrapped around her like velvet, deep, smooth, dangerous in a way she couldn't explain. She barely heard the words. Her attention lingered on the movement of his lips, the quiet confidence in his posture, the way he carried himself like he knew exactly who he was. For one fleeting, reckless second, she let herself believe he was there for her, until reality interrupted. "I won't be working on you today. It's my lunch break. Someone else will take over." The moment shattered. Jasmine blinked, forcing herself upright, smoothing over the flicker of disappointment with a polite smile. "Of course," she said softly, though it felt like something had slipped just out of reach. As he turned to leave, she watched him go, unable not to. A man like that, her chest tightened faintly, would never be interested in someone like me. She lay back again, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts tangled in ways she didn't want to examine. Her body felt warm, but it had nothing to do with the injury. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself, and then the door opened again. "Hi, I'm Stephen." His voice was gentle, grounding. Jasmine turned her head, meeting a very different kind of presence. Stephen wasn't striking in the same way Emmett was. He was softer, heavier, his features more familiar than breathtaking, but there was something about him that immediately put her at ease. Kind eyes, an easy smile, a warmth that didn't overwhelm but welcomed. Their conversation came naturally, light at first, then deeper in quiet, unexpected ways. He spoke about life, about purpose, and eventually about God. There was no pressure in it, just sincerity, an invitation to his church offered with a quiet kind of hope. Jasmine smiled, appreciative but hesitant. She declined. But healing takes time, and so did Stephen. Week after week, appointment after appointment, he remained the same, consistent, attentive, gently persistent in a way that never felt forced. He wasn't what she usually went for, not the kind of man who made her heart race at first glance. But there was something about him, something steady, safe, and slowly, without realizing it, She began to soften toward it. Until one day, "All right," she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I'll go." Stephen's face lit up instantly, his happiness unfiltered, genuine in a way that made her chest feel unexpectedly light. For a moment, they simply smiled at each other. Quiet, easy, simple. And then the door opened, and everything shifted. Emmett stepped inside. Jasmine's breath caught before she could stop it, her heart betraying her with a sudden, uneven rhythm. His gaze flicked between them, something knowing settling into his expression before that same effortless smile curved his lips. Stephen laughed. Emmett joined him. The sound was easy, familiar in a way that didn't sit right. Jasmine's brows pulled together, confusion threading through her thoughts as she looked between them. "Wait," she said slowly. "You two know each other?" Emmett's grin widened, warm and unapologetic. "That's my best friend." And just like that, the careful balance Jasmine had started to build shifted all over again. Emmett's words hit Jasmine like a sudden blow to the chest, stealing the air from her lungs. They echoed in her mind over and over as her gaze shifted between the two men standing before her. Of all the cruel twists the universe could conjure, this had to be one of them. What were the chances? That they would know each other? She had only just managed to steady herself, convincing her heart that she would never see Emmett again. And now, here he was, standing beside Stephen, as if fate had decided her peace was far too fragile to last. Forcing a small smile, she let out a nervous laugh, though it trembled at the edges. Stephen glanced between them, clearly sensing the tension, while Emmett caught his look and stepped in smoothly, while his voice calm but charged with something deeper. "This is the lady I was telling you about." Stephen chuckled lightly, unaware, or perhaps pretending to be. "Funny enough, I just asked her to come to church with me." The thought struck her hard, her stomach twisting. She looked between them again, her mind spinning. This has to be a dream. A bad one. I need to wake up. Has this all been some kind of game? The questions tangled in her chest, tightening with every passing second, until both men called her name, pulling her abruptly from her thoughts. Emmett broke the silence first, his tone light, almost teasing. "Too bad." The words stung more than they should have. Jasmine's heart sank. "Why didn't you ask me? What took him so long?" A wave of disappointment followed just as quickly, because no matter how much her heart leaned toward Emmett, she had already said yes to Stephen. Before she could process it any further, another coworker approached, drawing both men into conversation. Jasmine watched them for a moment, the ease between them, the way they spoke, before quietly gathering her belongings. She turned toward the exit, but not before her eyes betrayed her, lingering on Emmett just a second too long. Outside, her transportation arrived, loading other clients. "It's nothing," she told herself firmly. "Just a simple invitation to a church event. Nothing more." Stephen hurried out after her, calling her name. Slightly breathless, he asked for her number. She gave it to him, and then she left. 3 days later, a message from Stephen lit up her phone. He would be picking her up for the event. Jasmine smiled faintly as she read it, a quiet sense of relief settling in. At least she wouldn't have to see Emmett again. The day she had given Stephen her number had also been her last visit to the chiropractor. A clean break, or so she thought. The evening of the event arrived, bringing with it a mix of excitement and nerves. Jasmine adjusted her outfit, smoothing the fabric with careful hands, when her phone buzzed again. A message from Stephen. He was running late. Work had held him back. But he had a solution. He was sending Emmett to pick her up. Jasmine froze. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as her hand trembled, her breath catching painfully in her throat. No, this can't be happening. Her mind filled instantly with the image of Emmett's smile, that effortless, disarming smile. God, no, why? Her fingers moved quickly over the screen. "I don't mind waiting for you." The reply came almost instantly. "I'd rather he come get you." Her chest tightened, a lump forming in her throat. Then another message. "I gave Emmett your number." As if summoned by fate itself, her phone lit up again. "Emmett, what's your address?" 30 minutes later, headlights washed over her driveway. Jasmine stepped outside, her heart pounding as her eyes fell on a sleek white Audi, polished, powerful, undeniably striking. Just like him. She approached slowly, opening the door. Emmett sat inside, his expression unreadable, his gaze fixed on her as if he were studying every movement she made. He tilted his head slightly, watching her settle into the seat. Then he smiled, and it sent a shiver straight through her. They started with small talk, safe, careful, but the tension between them lingered just beneath the surface. "I was actually planning to invite you to this," he admitted after a moment, his voice softer now. "Guess Stephen beat me to it." Jasmine swallowed, her pulse quickening. The conversation flowed easily after that, almost too easily. They discovered shared interests, similar thoughts, the kind of natural connection that couldn't be forced. And yet, something deeper lingered. She couldn't shake the feeling. Maybe his looks had a lot to do with her infatuation. The way he spoke to her, the way his eyes drifted toward her, again and again, the way his gaze lingered just a second too long, like he was trying to read her, to understand her in ways no one else had. It made her shift in her seat, her breath uneven, because it felt like he wanted her too. Jasmine didn't speak the entire drive. The silence between her and Emmett stretched thin, delicate as glass, ready to shatter at the smallest touch. What had felt like a simple invitation now sat heavy in her chest, tangled with something she didn't want to name. Regret, maybe, or something far more complicated. By the time they pulled into the church parking lot, the quiet had settled into something undeniable, awkward, tense. She slipped out of the car quickly, avoiding Emmett's eyes. The evening air brushed against her skin as she glanced around, searching for a distraction, and found one. Stephen. He was approaching them from a distance, his familiar smile easy and warm. Jasmine's chest tightened as her gaze shifted, just briefly, to Emmett. But Emmett didn't look at her. Not once. He greeted Stephen with a firm, brotherly handshake, their laughter easy, natural, like she wasn't standing right there between them, carrying the weight of something unspoken. Jasmine watched quietly as Stephen gestured for her to walk with him inside, Emmett trailing just a step behind. 3 people, too close, too distant. Inside, Emmett eventually drifted off on his own, leaving Jasmine and Stephen side by side. The tension eased, just slightly. "I've actually been here before," Jasmine said softly, breaking the silence. "My cousin invited me once." Stephen blinked, surprised. "You go to church?" She gave a small shrug, her eyes scanning the room. It was filled with people their age, laughter, energy, movement. A youth event, she realized. He led her to their seats, and as she stepped into the row, she felt it before she even turned. Emmett, behind her. She told herself not to look, told herself she wouldn't. But something in her betrayed her, and she glanced back and met his eyes. He had been staring at her the entire time. Her heart stumbled, then raced, betraying her composure. Jasmine quickly turned forward, pretending nothing had happened, pressing her lips together as if she could silence the moment altogether. The service passed in a blur. Afterward, she and Stephen walked back toward his car, the night air cooler now, calmer. Just before they reached it, Stephen hesitated. "I should warn you," he admitted, his voice sheepish. "My car isn't great." Jasmine followed his gaze to the worn-down 4-door, rust along the edges, paint chipped with time. She looked back at him, and her expression softened. "Stephen," she said gently, "I'm not really a material girl. You shouldn't be embarrassed." He blinked, surprised. "At least you have a car," she added with a small laugh. Relief broke across his face, and he laughed with her, genuine, unguarded. "What's so funny?" Emmett's voice cut in smoothly as he approached. Jasmine stilled, letting Stephen answer. Both men turned their attention to her, and for a brief second, everything felt too focused, too intense. Emmett smiled. Jasmine swallowed. Stephen quickly opened the car door for her, and she slipped inside. Moments later, he joined her in the driver's seat, starting the engine as Emmett waved his goodbye and headed toward his own car. As they pulled away, Jasmine glanced at Stephen. A gentleman, thoughtful, trying. And for a moment, Emmett faded completely from her mind. Their eyes met briefly, both of them smiling, soft, shy. The ride home was quiet again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It gave her space to think, to sort through the confusion tangled inside her. By the time they reached her driveway, she simply said goodbye and slipped out, disappearing into the safety of her home. A few days later, Stephen texted her. "A movie?" Jasmine smiled at her phone. There was something she'd been wanting to see. She agreed, easily, happily. By the time he picked her up, their conversations had already begun to build something steady, Late-night texts, shared laughter, and a mutual love for anime that pulled them closer with every message. It felt easy, natural, promising, but that feeling cracked the moment they arrived at the theater. Oh, Emmett's meeting us here, Stephen said casually. Jasmine's smile faltered. Of course he was. A flicker of disappointment tightened her chest. She had been hoping, quietly, for time alone with Stephen, something real, something uninterrupted. Instead, him. Again. She grabbed her purse and jacket a little too sharply, shutting the car door with more force than she intended. You okay? Stephen asked, glancing at her. She forced a soft smile. Yeah, I'm fine. She wasn't. They met Emmett in the parking lot, the two men quickly falling into easy conversation, laughing, talking about work like Jasmine wasn't walking just a step behind them, slowly fading into the background. Emmett glanced back at her once. Their eyes met, and just as quickly, she looked away. Stephen noticed. Of course he did. He moved toward her, smiling warmly. Emmett, she's amazing. We have a lot in common. Jasmine managed a small smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The night dragged on. The laughter wasn't hers. The conversation didn't include her. And somewhere along the way, Jasmine began to feel like a stranger in her own evening. A third wheel. Weeks passed, and it didn't change. Every time Stephen asked her out, Emmett was there. At first it bothered her, then it frustrated her. Eventually, she just went numb to it. Because no matter how much she tried to focus on Stephen, on them, Emmett's presence lingered, constant and distracting. Unavoidable. She started to question everything. What were they? Just friends? Or was Stephen trying for something more? She had thought she knew the answer, but now she wasn't so sure. One evening, while she was at home, her phone lit up. Stephen, can I come by? Jasmine stared at the message for a moment before replying. Yes, because this time, they needed to talk. When she stepped into his car, her expression was serious, guarded. Stephen noticed immediately. His usual confidence faltered, nerves slipping into his voice. Before she could speak, he rushed in. Will you be my girlfriend? Jasmine blinked, caught completely off guard. Her thoughts hadn't caught up yet, but her heart, her instincts, her impulse, yes. The word left her lips before she could stop it. Stephen's face lit up, relief and happiness washing over him as he reached for her hands. But Jasmine gently pulled them back, her gaze steady on his. I want something, she said softly. He nodded quickly. Anything. Next time, it's just us. A pause. Emmett can't come. For a brief moment, something unreadable flickered across Stephen's face. Then he smiled. Okay, he said. Just me and you. Stephen and Jasmine grew closer with time. One afternoon, Jasmine received a text from Stephen asking if she wanted to attend Comic-Con with him. Jasmine had always wanted to go to a Comic-Con event, and she was excited to experience it with him. He came to pick her up from her house, and they drove 3 hours. She enjoyed the view as they talked about their favorite characters, their voices filled with excitement. Upon arriving, it was total chaos and madness. The parking lot was packed with people in elaborate cosplays. Jasmine and Stephen didn't dress up. They both wore Green Lantern t-shirts and jeans, matching like a couple. Jasmine couldn't mask her excitement. She was like a kid in a candy store. Her gaze shifted to the massive building, the convention center, and she gasped at how big it was. She took pictures of all her favorite cosplays, even stepping into some of the photos herself. She smiled, appreciative, looking at Stephen. The fact that he wanted to share this moment with her made her feel lucky to have met him. The entire day, they laughed, talked, and giggled like high school lovers, simply enjoying each other's company. They ate and talked even more. She watched as Stephen met his favorite characters, the heroes they had watched on TV as children. Jasmine smiled politely at him. Then Stephen said something that shifted everything. Emmett is missing all of this. He continued, mentioning that he had asked Emmett to come along, but he declined. Stephen went on, saying that Emmett had met a girl, that she came to the job, and it was like they clicked instantly. Jasmine tried to smile, but something wasn't right. She felt relief, but also a strange, sharp discomfort, something close to anger or concern. Stephen had promised not to invite Emmett anymore. Then it clicked. Jasmine stopped in her tracks. Did Stephen tell Emmett that he asked her to be his girlfriend? She saw Stephen's mouth moving, still talking, but her thoughts lingered, tuning out the loud chatter around them. The noise of the crowd faded into the background as she looked at him. Why was she hurt that Emmett found someone? She should be happy, right? But something felt off. The day went by quickly, but the entire time she struggled to focus on Stephen. Her mind kept drifting back to Emmett and this new woman he was talking to. She snapped back to reality when Stephen looked at her, noticing she wasn't as enthusiastic as she had been earlier. He studied her face, but she avoided his gaze. That was when it hit him. He had promised it would be just the two of them. Emmett wasn't supposed to be part of anything anymore. Realization flickered across his face. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "We should eat." The rest of the event went well, at least on the surface, as Jasmine pushed everything she felt deep inside. On the way home, Stephen talked about the woman Emmett had met. He said Emmett liked her, that she was educated, a nurse, and seemed to have her life together. Jasmine sat silently, not voicing her opinion, staring out the window the entire ride home. Days passed. Stephen would call Jasmine, often bringing up Emmett and the woman he was dating. Jasmine just listened. It sounded like Stephen admired her, praised her. He talked about how beautiful she was, how thoughtful she was, how she would come by the job and bring smoothies for both him and Emmett. Then the comparison started. Stephen began asking Jasmine why she hadn't come by to drop off food for him. Jasmine stayed quiet. "I don't even have a car," she thought. She grew tired of hearing about this mystery woman and about Emmett. With every call, Stephen praised her more, comparing their relationship to his and Jasmine's. Eventually, Jasmine went numb. Weeks of comparison had drained something in her. And then slowly, she began to realize something deeper. Stephen's obsession with Emmett, the way he talked about him, the way he compared everything. It wasn't admiration, it was something else. Stephen wanted to be Emmett, in every way, and suddenly, everything started to make sense. Maybe Emmett hadn't chosen to come along on those dates. Maybe he had been dragged into them. Jasmine's thoughts spiraled. The looks Emmett had given her, were they concern? Did he know something about Stephen that he wasn't saying? That night, Jasmine sat at home, lost in thought. A quiet realization settling in. Was this relationship real, or was she just part of something else? Something unspoken? A competition, a comparison, a way for Stephen to measure himself against Emmett. Jasmine exhaled slowly, her chest tight. Was Stephen trying to be Emmett? Jasmine sat quietly, her thoughts unraveling in slow, painful threads as everything finally began to make sense. Looking back, the signs had always been there, woven into the smallest moments between Stephen and Emmett. She remembered the way Stephen would casually compare their cars, laughing as he downplayed his own while subtly admiring Emmett's, calling his classier. At the time, it had seemed harmless. Now it felt like something else entirely. And the gym. Whenever Emmett spoke about his workouts, Stephen would immediately turn to her, asking if she wanted to exercise with him. He would joke about his own body, self-deprecating comments tossed out too quickly, too rehearsed, like he was trying to beat Emmett to the punchline before it could ever land. But it didn't stop there. When Emmett started dating, Stephen's attention shifted, fixating not only on Emmett, but on the woman by his side. He spoke about her often, too often, her slim figure, her healthy lifestyle, how perfect she seemed for Emmett. Jasmine had heard it all, over and over again, especially when Emmett was around. At the time, she had brushed it off. Now, she couldn't. Everything came to a head the night Stephen texted her about the double date. He had sounded excited, almost too excited. Jasmine, on the other hand, felt a quiet dread settle in her chest. She wasn't in the mood to go out, not really. But curiosity got the better of her. She wanted to see this woman, the one who had captured Emmett's heart so completely. From the way Stephen described her, Jasmine already knew. She wouldn't compare. Still, she said yes. The restaurant buzzed softly with evening chatter, the golden glow of string lights casting a romantic haze over everything. Jasmine sat across from Stephen, her patience wearing thin as she glanced at the time again, 30 minutes late. Her stomach twisted, not just from irritation but hunger. She hadn't eaten all day. "I'm going to order something," she said, reaching for the menu. Stephen shook his head quickly. "No, let's just wait." Of course, they waited. When Emmett finally appeared, it was as if the entire world shifted. He walked toward them in a crisp white suit, effortlessly polished, his presence commanding attention without trying. Jasmine's breath caught, her heart stumbling over itself, as her eyes locked onto him. And then she saw her, the woman beside him. Maya. She was breathtaking, effortlessly so. Her skin glowed like warm honey beneath the soft lights, her figure slender and elegant, like something sculpted with intention. She moved with a quiet confidence that Jasmine instantly recognized and instantly envied. Together, they looked unreal, like a couple pulled straight from a movie, perfectly matched in every way. Jasmine felt something inside her crack. Stephen stood immediately, his face lighting up as he greeted Maya with an enthusiasm Jasmine had never seen directed at her. They laughed, talked, fell into easy conversation about past hangouts, shared spaces, familiar moments. Jasmine sat there, smiling when expected, nodding when necessary, but inside, she was fading. She didn't belong here. That truth settled heavily in her chest. She was just Jasmine, a visual merchandiser, ordinary, replaceable, and suddenly Stephen's constant comparisons made perfect sense. Maya turned to her then, offering a warm smile. "Hi, I'm Maya." "Jasmine," she replied softly, forcing a polite smile. But the damage had already been done. Every word Stephen had ever said echoed loudly in her mind, chipping away at what little confidence she had left. Then, as if that wasn't enough, Stephen leaned closer. "That's how you should dress," he whispered, his voice low but sharp enough to wound. Jasmine froze. He pulled back, continuing aloud. "Don't you have dresses like that?" And just like that, he was laughing again, fully engaged with Emmett and Maya, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just shattered something inside her. The world tilted. Jasmine's stomach twisted into tight, painful knots. Nausea crept up her throat, her head growing light as the sounds around her blurred into a distant hum. She couldn't breathe. Excuse me," she murmured, pushing her chair back. She needed air. Even though they were already outside, it didn't matter. She just needed to escape. By the time she returned, the evening was already unraveling. Emmett and Maya were standing, preparing to leave. "We've got an early day tomorrow," Emmett explained, his tone apologetic but firm. Stephen tried to convince them to stay, his voice almost pleading, but it didn't work. They left. And just like that, the illusion of the night disappeared with them. Stephen sighed, then turned back to Jasmine. "I guess we should go too." Jasmine looked at him, really looked at him. And in that moment, something inside her became painfully clear. This wasn't love. This wasn't even kindness. It was comparison, competition, quiet humiliation disguised as jokes and suggestions. Her chest tightened, but not with sadness, with certainty. As they walked out of the restaurant, Jasmine knew one thing for sure. This relationship was over. The ride home was unbearably quiet. Jasmine sat curled into herself in the passenger seat, her gaze fixed on the passing streetlights as they blurred into soft streaks of gold. Stephen glanced at her more than once, his grip tightening slightly on the steering wheel, but he said nothing. And somehow, that silence said everything. Jasmine didn't trust herself to speak, not without breaking. All she wanted was her bed, her quiet space where she could unravel the night, where she could finally admit to herself what this relationship really was, or wasn't. When Stephen pulled into her driveway, the engine barely had time to settle before she opened the door. "Good night," she said, her voice distant, cold, and then she was gone. The next morning came too quickly. Jasmine's phone rang, Stephen's name lighting up her screen. She stared at it for a moment before answering, her chest already tight with unresolved anger. "I'm in the neighborhood," he said. "I'll stop by." Of course he was. Jasmine closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. Last night still clung to her like a bad dream. Maya's effortless beauty, Stephen's whispered words, the comparison she couldn't unhear. And now, he wanted her to what? Smile? Pretend? "Fine," she said. But she was already moving. By the time Stephen's car pulled into the driveway, Jasmine was standing outside waiting, with a box. He stepped out slowly, his eyes immediately landing on it. Confusion flickered across his face. Jasmine didn't give him time to speak. "It's over," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I want to break up." Stephen blinked. "Wait, what? What did I do? I don't understand." She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for a moment it almost hurt more that he was pretending not to know. "You do," she said quietly. "I don't," he insisted, shaking his head. "Jasmine, I swear, I don't." But she couldn't stand there and explain it. Not again. Not when he had been there. Not when he had said those things himself. Before he could protest further, she turned, stepping back inside the house and slamming the door behind her, leaving him standing there, alone. Weeks passed. Stephen called, texted, called again, every day. Jasmine ignored all of it. Each message chipped at her resolve, but the memory of that night, the comparisons, the quiet humiliation held her steady. Still, hurt and disgust twisted together inside her, refusing to settle, until one night, she answered, "What did I do wrong?" Stephen's voice came through, raw and desperate, and something in her snapped. "You compared me," she said, her voice trembling with emotion she had held in for too long. To her, to him, to everyone. He tried to interrupt, but she didn't let him. "We were never just us," she continued, anger rising. "If you weren't praising Emmett, you were praising Maya. It never stopped. I was always less." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then she hung up. A few weeks later, another message came. "I understand now. Can we talk?" Jasmine hesitated. She shouldn't have said yes, but she did. When Stephen arrived, she met him outside, arms crossed as if bracing herself. "I talked to someone," he began. Jasmine rolled her eyes instantly. "It wasn't Emmett," he added quickly. "It was another friend." That made her pause. Then, softer this time, he said, "I'm sorry." And somehow, that simple apology slipped past her defenses. Stephen wasn't perfect, far from it, but he had been her friend too, the one who made her laugh, the one she teased, calling him her velvet teddy bear, the one who had once smiled at her like she was something soft and worth holding on to. Tulip, he used to call her. She hated how much she missed that. Before she could stop herself, Jasmine smiled, and then she stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him. "Just me and you," Stephen murmured against her hair. "Just us two," she echoed, like a promise. For a while, it felt real. They went on dates, just the two of them. No comparisons, no outside shadows. Late night drives with music spilling softly between them. Quiet walks along the beach under a sky full of stars. Jasmine felt seen, truly seen. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future with him, and when Stephen gave her a promise ring, her heart bloomed with something fragile and hopeful. Maybe this time, it would be different. Then came the text, "Get ready. We're going out, meeting some friends for Bible study." Jasmine hesitated immediately. Stephen noticed. "It's not Emmett or Maya," he reassured her over the phone. "Just someone I want you to meet." Reluctantly, she agreed. The house was full when they arrived. Warm laughter, soft music, a projector casting light across the walls. It felt welcoming, safe, until it wasn't. Before they left, Stephen turned to a woman across the room. "Jasmine, this is Kim." Jasmine knew instantly. Kim was beautiful, dark skin glowing, curves that carried confidence, a smile that could draw attention effortlessly. But it wasn't her beauty that made Jasmine uneasy. It was the way she looked at her. Kim's smile didn't reach her eyes. It lingered too long, assessing, calculating. When Stephen introduced Jasmine as his girlfriend, Kim froze for the briefest moment. "Girlfriend?" she repeated, as if testing the word. Then came that polished smile again. Too perfect, too empty, like a painting. Outside, Jasmine exhaled slowly. "How long have you known her?" she asked. "Since high school," Stephen replied casually. Jasmine nodded, but inside something tightened. Another battle. She could feel it. What Stephen didn't know, what she had never told him, was that Jasmine saw things most people didn't. She read people, studied them, behavior, patterns, micro-expressions. It had always come naturally to her. She had once dreamed of studying psychology, of turning that instinct into something more. But life had taken her elsewhere. Still, the skill remained, and right now, it was screaming at her. That Sunday morning at church, the feeling only deepened. Kim was there. Of course she was. After service, Kim approached them outside, laughing easily with Stephen, her familiarity almost intimate. "I can't wait to come over for dinner again," she teased, mentioning his mother, his home, things that felt personal. Then casually, "Oh, and how's your daughter?" Jasmine froze, her world tilted. Daughter? The word echoed loudly in her mind, louder than anything else Kim had said. Stephen stiffened beside her. Too late. The damage was done. For months, he hadn't told her. Jasmine forced a polite smile, masking the storm rising beneath her skin. "I'm going to check out the gift shop," she said lightly. And before either of them could stop her, she walked away. Jasmine moved slowly to the church gift shop, her fingers brushing over polished crosses and delicate trinkets, though she barely saw any of it. Her mind was somewhere else. On Kim? on Stephen. On the way Kim had spoken, so casually, so comfortably, like she had roots in Stephen's life, like she belonged there in a way Jasmine hadn't yet earned. Jasmine swallowed, picking up a small charm before setting it back down. Kim had history, years of it, high school memories, inside jokes, access. And that comment about Stephen's daughter, that stung, because Jasmine hadn't known. And that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the feeling deep in her chest, the quiet, undeniable instinct that Kim had a crush on Stephen. Jasmine knew it, not because it was said, but because she felt it. And now, standing there, it all started to stack up. First Emmett, then Maya, now Kim. Too many people, too many emotions, too many things she was walking into blind. Her chest tightened. Should I even be in this? Her eyes drifted toward the church doors. Stephen hadn't come after her. Through the open space, she could see him, laughing with Kim, relaxed, easy, like there wasn't a storm building inside her. That laugh echoed, and something inside her shifted. Why am I fighting so hard for someone who feels like a constant battle? And yet, the truth still lingered. She hated it, but she knew it. Stephen felt like he was meant for her, and maybe that was the problem. When she stepped out, Stephen was already walking toward her. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was calm, grounding. He led her to the car and explained. The daughter wasn't his. His brother had left, and he and his mom stepped in. It became a joke, an inside thing between him and Kim. Jasmine nodded. She understood the words, but she also understood something Stephen didn't. Kim used that moment, a quiet claim, a subtle message. "I've been here longer. I know him better." Jasmine didn't argue, but she didn't forget it either. Later, after a quick outfit change, Stephen picked her up again. The beach was calm, the air soft, the waves endless. For a moment, Jasmine let herself feel it. Peace, possibility. She could see a life with him, something real, something meaningful. She cared about him deeply. But even as she sat there, watching the ocean stretch into forever, a truth settled in her bones. If she became his girlfriend, her peace would always be in jeopardy. On the drive, Stephen suddenly turned in the opposite direction. Jasmine frowned. "Where are you going?" He smiled. "It's a surprise." Her stomach dropped instantly. "You know I don't like surprises," she said, sharper now. He hesitated, then said it. "I'm taking you to meet my mom." Jasmine's eyes widened. No, Stephen, please." Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It was real. "I'm not ready. Look at me. I'm not dressed right. My hair. This is not how I want to meet her." "My mom doesn't care," he said. "I do," she snapped. Silence filled the car. "I want to make a good impression," she added, her voice firm. He laughed lightly. And that set her off. "Stephen, stop the car." He glanced at her. "Turn around." Her tone left no room for negotiation. "Take me home." The ride back was heavy. He apologized. She understood his intentions, but understanding didn't erase the fact that he didn't listen, and that mattered. As she stepped out of the car, he stopped her again. "Let's go on another double date with Emmett and Maya." Her body froze. Flashback. Maya's dress. Stephen whispering, "That's how you should dress. You got something like that?" The comparison. The quiet embarrassment. The hurt. "I don't know," she said honestly. "It won't be like last time," he promised. She nodded, but something inside her had already started to close. The day came, and Jasmine didn't want to go. Excuses formed in her mind like lifelines, but none of them strong enough to use. Then his text came. "I'll be there soon." She sighed and got ready. They met at Stephen's workplace, waiting for Emmett. When he finally appeared, Jasmine felt it immediately. Nothing, no pull, no ache, no lingering emotion. Whatever she once thought she felt for Emmett was gone, completely, undeniably gone. And that mattered, because Jasmine had rules. She was a girl's girl, always had been. Her mindset was simple. You don't mess with a man who has a girlfriend. And Emmett? He had Maya. So whatever curiosity or feeling had once existed, it was buried, locked away, gone for good. And she stood on that, proudly. Maya glowed as she talked about meeting Emmett's mother, how she was accepted, welcomed. Jasmine felt the realization hit her like a quiet wave. That's why Stephen pushed earlier. He wasn't just being thoughtful. He was trying to keep up, trying to mirror something that didn't belong to them. Her smile didn't break, but inside, something cracked. The night moved on. Conversations flowing between the three of them. Jasmine stayed quiet. There was nothing for her to add, nothing she wanted to add. At the bar, it was loud, crowded, alive. When Stephen and Emmett stepped away, leaving everything behind, Jasmine picked up his phone and keys without thinking. She and Maya followed them out. She handed them over. Stephen smiled, then leaned in. "You passed." Jasmine blinked. "A test," he said casually. And just like that, her heart dropped. Her chest tightened. A test? She didn't even know she was being tested. What else had he been watching? Measuring? Judging? She didn't react. But inside, she was done. Outside, she leaned against his car, her mind racing. That's when she saw it, the car beside her. Classic, clean, beautiful. "Nice car," she said as the owner approached. He smiled. "Thank you." The conversation was easy, light, and then she made a choice, a deliberate one. Jasmine knew Stephen was watching, so she let the moment stretch. Let the laughter linger, let the attention sit on her. Because this wasn't random. She was using it, using him to make a point, to remind Stephen she was desirable. She had options. She wasn't someone to test. "I heard someone say, 'Go get your girl,'" the man laughed loudly. And that was enough. Stephen walked over, his energy different, sharp, possessive. "Baby, let's go." "Baby?" A slow smirk curved her lips. Interesting. She turned slightly, raising her voice just enough. "What's wrong with you?" she asked Stephen, making sure the other man heard. The stranger chuckled, amused, before saying goodbye. Jasmine gave him a soft smile, then turned back. Stephen was irritated now, quietly fuming. Under his breath, just loud enough, "That's my girl." And something in his tone, it sent a spark through her. Possessive. Raw. A side of him she had never seen before. And for a moment, just a moment, heat curled low in her stomach. It was intoxicating. Dangerous, exciting. But Jasmine didn't forget. Not the test. Not the comparison. Not the constant pressure of trying to be enough in a relationship that kept measuring her. She had her moment. She took her power back. And as she walked toward the car, that knowing smile still on her lips, she understood something clearly now. She could want him. She could feel him. But she didn't have to stay. Not this time. Jasmine spent the weekend surrounded by family, laughter filling spaces that had once been occupied by overthinking. But even then, Stephen lingered, in her phone, in her thoughts, in the quiet pauses between conversations. She texted him back, but barely. Short replies, cold, controlled, 4 syllables at most, just enough to respond, not enough to invite him back in, because she was still upset, still hurt. But beneath that, she felt something new, empowered. After the way she handled him, after the way she showed him she wasn't to be played with, something inside her had shifted, and she liked it. When Stephen texted, Jasmine stared at the message for a long time. She didn't respond, not right away. Instead, she went to her cousins, sat down and told them everything, every detail, every moment, no sugarcoating, no holding back. And as she spoke, she saw it. The concern on their faces, the looks exchanged, the disbelief. Jasmine, one of them started shaking her head. Another cut in, louder, sharper. "Oh, hell no." The room erupted, voices overlapping, cursing, opinions, truth. "He's trying to be Emmett. That's not a relationship, that's a competition." And Kim? "Oh no, she got you messed up." Jasmine couldn't help it. She laughed. Because this was why she loved them. They didn't lie to her. They didn't soften things. They told her exactly what she needed to hear. "Your peace matters more," one of them said firmly. "And if you got to let him go, you let him go." Jasmine sat there, taking it all in, and deep down, she knew they were right. Later, when Stephen called, she stepped outside to answer. "I want to see you," he said. Her chest tightened. She hesitated. Every instinct told her to pull away, but her heart wasn't ready to let go just yet. "Okay," she said quietly, "one more chance." "What do you want to do?" he asked, and instantly, something lit up in her memory. "The Can-Am Spider," she said, a small smile forming. "I've always wanted to ride one." He laughed softly. "I gotta go, I'm at work, but we'll talk." They hung up, and Jasmine stood there, staring at her phone, torn, because no matter how strong she tried to be, Stephen still had a hold on her, and she didn't like that. 2 weeks passed, busy schedules, missed moments, phone calls here and there, just enough to stay connected, but not enough to fix anything. Then one day, his voice came through her phone again. "I got a surprise for you." Jasmine froze. She didn't like his surprises anymore, not after last time. But he reassured her. "It's a good one. Just wear jeans tomorrow." And despite everything, excitement crept in. The next day, Jasmine got ready exactly how he told her. Jeans, simple, perfect for whatever he had planned. Her heart beat with anticipation. This could be something good, something theirs. Stephen called. I'm running late. That was fine. At first, but time passed. 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. No call, no text, nothing. Jasmine paced the floor, anxiety creeping in. This wasn't like him. Her mind spiraled. Did something happen? Is he okay? She called. Straight to voicemail. She texted. No response, and still she waited, patiently, because that's who she was. Finally, her phone rang. Relief flooded her. Stephen, are you? I'm fine, he said quickly. Sorry, I didn't mean to worry you. She exhaled. But then he kept talking, and with every word, something inside her began to break. The surprise, it was the motorcycle, the one you wanted. Her heart lifted, then dropped. I told Emmett about it, and he and Maya came along. We were going to make it a double date, ride on the beach. Silence. The rental place only had one bike left, so Emmett took Maya. She left her purse with me, so I couldn't leave, and they've been riding for hours. I've just been waiting here. Jasmine didn't hear the rest, because rage had already taken over. This was their moment, something she shared with him, something she was excited about. And once again, Emmett, Maya, inserted, taking, overshadowing, just like before. Her voice came sharp, unfiltered. You let them take it? Stephen tried to explain, but she was done listening. Everything poured out, every frustration, every comparison, every moment he made her feel like she had to measure up. You act different around them, she snapped, like you're trying to be him. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. All she could picture was Maya on that motorcycle, laughing, living the moment Jasmine was supposed to have, with her man. And worse, she left her purse so you couldn't leave? Jasmine's voice dropped, disgust dripping from every word. And you stayed? Hours. He waited for hours, while they rode off into something that was never theirs to take. It hit her all at once. Heavy, clear, painful. Stephen wasn't protecting their relationship. He was bending it, shrinking it, letting others step into spaces meant for them. You're weak, she said, her voice steady now, but cutting. You don't even see what's happening. Silence on the other end. I deserve better than this. Her heart pounded. And I don't want a man who doesn't have a backbone. That was it. Her breaking point. It's over. The word slipped out. Sharp, final, powerful. Something she had been holding in for so long, finally free. Stephen pushed back, scrambling. I didn't invite them. They just came to help. But Jasmine knew him. She knew when he was lying, and she was done. She hung up. Storming back into the house, she tore off her outfit, emotions crashing over her in waves. Hurt, anger, disappointment. But underneath it all, relief. Her cousins had heard everything, and they didn't hesitate. Girl, get dressed, one said. We going out. A beach bar. Drinks. Now, Jasmine didn't argue. She needed it. That night, they stepped onto the crowded beach. Music playing, laughter in the air, the energy alive. But Jasmine, she was still carrying the weight. Brittany noticed immediately. Without a word, she pulled Jasmine into a tight hug, lacing their fingers together. Come on. She led her away from the crowd, to the dark shoreline where the waves crashed loudly against the sand. The other girls followed. And then they screamed. Loud, raw, releasing everything they had been holding in their own lives. Brittany looked at Jasmine, smiling softly. Your turn. Jasmine hesitated. Then she let it out. Stephen, you jerk! Her voice cracked. Tears filled her eyes as the emotion ripped through her. Brittany pulled her close, holding her tight as the others joined in. A group hug, warm, grounding, real. She wasn't alone. Not in this. They walked back toward the bar, energy shifting. Time for alcohol, Brittany said. Laughter broke out, and for the first time that night, Jasmine smiled for real. Drink after drink, she let herself feel lighter, free, until her phone rang. Stephen, she answered. It's over, she said immediately. I'm coming to your house, he shot back. I'm not home. Before she could finish, Brittany snatched the phone. Leave her alone, she snapped. You've done enough. She's with her family. Don't call again. And hung up. But the calls didn't stop. The texts kept coming, over and over and over. Jasmine stared at her phone, the screen lighting up again in the dim glow of the bar. This time, she didn't answer, because for the first time in a long time, she meant it. It was over.